The diner was buzzing that afternoon, though not with excitement. The usual chatter of regulars filled the air, mixed with the clatter of dishes and the hiss of the coffee machine. The staff moved efficiently, but there was tension. A billionaire had come in, and his reputation for rudeness had already spread. The new waitress, Lily, adjusted her apron nervously. She was aware of him the moment he walked in, a tall man with a sharp suit and eyes that seemed to measure everything. The staff quietly avoided him, whispering to one another as they moved past. But Lily felt a spark of curiosity she couldn't ignore. He slid into a booth by the window, throwing a casual glance at the menu, though it was clear he didn't care to read it. Water, black coffee. Fast, he demanded, and his tone left no room for discussion. The usual waitresses recoiled, shaking their heads as they passed him by. No one wanted to serve him. Lily took a deep breath and walked over. "Hi, I'm Lily. I'll take care of you today," she said politely, holding his gaze. She noticed the surprise in his eyes, a flicker he tried to hide. Some of the other staff whispered, "She's brave," or "foolish." Lily didn't care either way. As she poured his water and coffee, he studied her like she was some new puzzle to solve. "You seem confident," he said with a smirk. Lily smiled faintly, keeping her tone even. "I treat everyone the same. Rude or nice," she replied, setting the tray on his table carefully. From the corner, a regular customer whispered to another, "No one stands up to him." Not even for tips, but Lily's steady calm caught the billionaire off guard. He wasn't used to people speaking to him without fear or fawning. It was subtle, but it was enough to change the air in the diner. She returned to take his order, ignoring the stares from her coworkers. "What would you like to eat?" she asked, jotting notes. He raised an eyebrow and said, "Everything I want, now, and make it perfect." Lily nodded, hiding her irritation. "I'll do my best," she replied calmly. The other staff watched in silence, some amazed, some annoyed. They had avoided him for years, yet this new girl seemed unaffected. Lily noticed the change in his expression, a brief shift from arrogance to curiosity. He leaned back slightly, intrigued. "Where are you from?" he asked suddenly. Lily paused, surprised by the personal question. "I grew up nearby," she said, deciding honesty was best. "Why?" His smirk softened for just a moment. "Curious about the ones who aren't afraid," he replied, and she felt a strange weight in his tone. By the time she brought his food, the diner had quieted down. The billionaire ate with meticulous care, while Lily stood nearby, attentive but calm. "Impressive," he muttered, almost to himself. She smiled politely and returned to the counter, ignoring the curious stares of the rest of the staff. Lily caught a glance from one of the older waitresses. She mouthed, "Good luck," but Lily just nodded slightly. She was used to proving herself. This was different. This was about dignity, and she wasn't going to back down. The billionaire noticed, and a subtle tension hung between them. He pushed his plate slightly forward. "You're different from the others," he said, voice low. Lily raised her eyebrows, keeping her posture firm. "I treat everyone the same," she said calmly. The words weren't just for him, they were for herself too. The staff were now completely silent, watching the interaction unfold like a slow-motion show. Whispers had stopped. The fear that usually lingered around the billionaire was gone from Lily. She moved with confidence, taking care of him like any other customer. As the meal ended, he leaned back, studying her carefully. "Most people avoid me," he said quietly. "But you—" Lily set the bill down without looking nervous. "I see people, not money or power," she said softly, her voice steady. The billionaire blinked, unprepared for her answer. By now, nearly everyone in the diner had watched the exchange. The air had shifted. Lily had shown something rare, courage and calm in the face of someone intimidating. The billionaire's smirk had softened into something unreadable. He respected her, though he wouldn't admit it aloud. When she returned to the counter, she exhaled slightly, but kept her composure. "Not bad for a first day," she whispered to herself. The CEO, sitting alone, sipped his coffee and watched her. He was used to being feared, but here was someone who ignored fear entirely. The clock ticked steadily. Lily kept serving tables with the same quiet confidence. Occasionally, she glanced at the billionaire. There was a strange connection forming, not romance, not friendship, but respect. Something that even he hadn't expected to feel in a diner full of strangers. By the end of his visit, he had said nothing cruel, nothing dismissive. Instead, he paid generously and left a note. Lily picked it up carefully. "Most people think they can scare me." It read. "You prove them wrong." She smiled faintly, touched but composed. The staff whispered among themselves as he left. Lily's presence had shifted the dynamic in the diner completely. Everyone who had feared him now looked at her with awe. The new waitress had not only served a meal, she had stood her ground, and the billionaire had noticed. And so, that afternoon, the diner became quieter, but charged with a new energy. A reminder that courage often comes quietly, and that sometimes respect is earned in the smallest of ways. Lily had done just that. She had made an impression that day. After that day, the diner seemed different. The staff moved with more confidence, inspired by Lily's courage. Even the regulars noticed the shift, whispering about the young waitress who had stood up to a billionaire. It was like she had changed the air in the room without trying. The billionaire returned a week later, just as quietly as before. He didn't cause a scene, didn't make demands, but he asked for Lily specifically. The other staff watched with surprise, unsure how to. Lily, however, remained calm, greeting him with the same steady smile she always wore. "Coffee, please," he said simply, his usual sharp tones softened. She nodded, preparing it with care. There was a quiet understanding now, a respect that needed no words. Even when he glanced at her, there was no judgment, only recognition of the courage she had shown. During the meal, he spoke little, letting the silence stretch comfortably between them. Lily moved efficiently, attending to the other tables while keeping an eye on him. Every so often, their eyes met, and in that brief exchange, both felt a connection deeper than words. When she cleared his plate, he leaned slightly forward. "You changed the way I see people," he said quietly. Lily's heart skipped a beat, though her expression stayed composed. "Everyone deserves respect," she replied. "Even the ones who think they don't." He paused, studying her carefully. "You're different from anyone I've met," he admitted. The other staff noticed him speaking kindly, genuinely, to someone. Lily smiled faintly, keeping her composure. It wasn't about flattery, it was about acknowledgement. Later, he stood to leave, placing money on the table more than usual. Lily nodded politely, but he caught her hand lightly. "Don't change who you are," he said softly. She squeezed his hand briefly before letting go, a silent acknowledgement that the message was received. The diner staff whispered after he left, marveling at the change. The billionaire, who had once inspired fear, now inspired respect and gratitude. Lily returned to her work, quiet and composed, knowing she had done more than just serve coffee. She had made a statement. Word spread about the incident, but Lily didn't let it go to her head. She continued her work with the same steady diligence. Yet every now and then, when she looked up, she saw a familiar figure at the door, waiting quietly, as if for her alone. Months passed, and the billionaire became a regular. He no longer intimidated the staff. Instead, he followed Lily's lead in how to behave. They developed a rhythm, a mutual understanding. It wasn't friendship yet, but it was a foundation for something more. One afternoon, he left a note with his usual order. Lily picked it up carefully. "You make people better just by being yourself," it read. She smiled, a genuine warmth spreading across her face. It was the kind of recognition she had never expected. Another day, he spoke up while placing an order for a meeting. "Bring her into the conference," he said quietly. Lily's coworkers blinked in surprise, unsure if they had heard correctly. But Lily simply nodded, ready to face whatever challenge came next. It was the first time she realized that courage could open doors. Standing firm, even in the presence of power, could earn respect and even change perspectives. The billionaire's attitude toward her reflected that truth clearly. By the end of the year, the diner had a new energy. The staff were more confident, the regulars more engaged, and the billionaire a changed man. Lily continued her work, unassuming but deeply impactful. She had proven that standing your ground mattered. And in that quiet diner, over countless cups of coffee, a bond had formed, built not on wealth or fear, but on courage, dignity, and respect. The billionaire had learned the lesson, and the diner had a new story. Finally, one late afternoon, as the sun set and the neon sign flickered, Lily poured coffee for the last table. The billionaire entered, nodded at her, and simply said, "Thank you." She returned the smile, feeling a quiet pride in her heart. In that small, ordinary diner, a remarkable story had unfolded, one of bravery, respect, and the power of standing tall. Lily had proven that even in the face of wealth and authority, humanity and courage could leave a lasting mark.